Why, after all of this time, am I still nocturnal? As some of you have probably seen on this channel, I have wrestled with daytime sleep schedules time and time again in an attempt to adapt to the real world and what it requires of me. But I'm at a point now where I've realized when I eventually get off of disability and have to work, I want to work at night. Like, I have been running around trying my absolute best to change this preference to the night that I have, and it just hasn't worked. Even for the periods of time where I have been able to get myself to, at least for a period of time, wake up in the daytime and go to sleep at night, it's been mentally uncomfortable for me to an extreme degree. And when I had my last job and I was vlogging about it and I was complaining about it nonstop, I would go 3-4 days without sleeping, and I would have to come into work like that because for whatever reason I just could not get myself to sleep at night. Now, a huge component to that was stress, and when I was looking for a job later in New York, I was once again able to sleep at night for a period of time until it inevitably got fucked up again. I think one of the biggest reasons why that last job I had was as painful to have as it was because I just, for the life of me, could not get myself the fuck to sleep. And I've been reflecting on why I have this preference. Just outside of, like, the obvious thing of not being able to sleep, during the night. Like, I would walk to work for over an hour, and then I would work overtime for up until like 7:30 p.m. After getting there early in the morning, and I couldn't help but feel like if I can't get to sleep after being awake multiple days and running up and down stairs, carrying huge loads, scrubbing things like down as fast as I possibly could in order to get the 20 rooms that I had to get done, taking these fucking lint rollers to get all of the dog hair out of the rooms, which would sometimes be so much, carrying these huge loads of trash out to the dumpster and out of the rooms. Like, these rooms would look like the fucking Tasmanian devil came raging through. They would look like a war zone when I would have to do them. And so it wasn't a pretty sight. They were not sending their best. When the droves came to that hotel and would fill it up, like, we were a busy establishment. They would send the fucking army through that place. They were not sending their best. And so, those rooms, they looked like hell. And you had to carry a lot. You had to move a lot. You had to move fast and all day. And, if through all of that and through the long walk on the interstate, I could not be tired enough to sleep when I got home, there was just no way I was going to get to sleep, Like, at that point, it's just a physical and mental disability. Like, how the fuck do you do it if that's not going to work, So here I am reflecting on all of this, not just from the physical side, which is like me physically being unable to sleep at those times. But that's the most obvious part of all this. I'm thinking about the mental side. You know, since my girlfriend went back home and I haven't been spending time with her, I've been spending all of my time alone. Like, I've had a few very sparse calls with no thank you, like 3, and those don't usually last super long. I've almost exclusively been talking to her on the phone when I do talk to someone on the phone. Most of my friends I have not been texting. I don't respond that fast. I'm generally very unreliable when it comes to responding. I haven't really been spending time with people physically either. I've just wanted to spend all my time alone. I've been reading a lot. I've been thinking a lot. And when I haven't been doing those things, I've been sitting out on a night like this, looking out at the road or the trees, and taking in the wind, taking in the sounds of the animals. And that's been my life. You know, I don't have any interest in being around people or talking to people right now. I go through many periods of time that are like this, where I just want no socialization whatsoever, and I feel content to be alone. I feel much better being alone. I've locked myself out of my Twitter account now too, just because I felt like it was unneeded noise. I felt like it was distracting and not adding to my satisfaction whatsoever at that, you know. I don't want social media. I don't want social, period. And mentally, maybe that's why being awake at night and sleeping during the day is so appealing to me, because most of the noise from the cars is gone. All of the light pollution is gone. And by light pollution, I don't mean street lights, because I got a couple of those here. I mean the fucking sun. Like, I spend so much time just wanting to extinguish the sun, because it hurts my eyes, because I find it alienating. It makes me feel outside of myself, disconnected from myself, disconnected from the world. That isn't to say it can't be really pretty sometimes, but I prefer my days to be gray if I want days at all. And when they're not gray, I want them to be fucking dark. And so here it is, dark. And nobody else is out at these times. And so I can truly be free to be alone when it's dark like this. And when I look at myself in my totality, and I look back on all the years that I've had this lifestyle, and it's been a long time. I've been living with a strong preference for being nocturnal at least since I was 14, when I got taken out of school again, and around 15 when I formally dropped out. But even before that, you know, when I was homeschooled, I would do night school a lot of the time, because my parents recognized that I, for whatever reason, preferred the nighttime. And so I've been living this way for so long that it's like kind of ingrained, you know? It's something that I'm unlikely to change. And I derive a great sense of freedom and independence from living this way. And I wouldn't want to change it. You know, when I ultimately get off of welfare and I have to work and when I move in with my girlfriend, I definitely would prefer to have a night job, but I'd be willing to make that adaptation again if it's for her. But I'll tell you, I would not do that for anybody else, only for her. Now that's how strongly committed I am to her. But it's definitely hard for me. It's hard for me to go outside and have to look at their faces, to have to know that they're acknowledging my existence. Like, I struggle just to go to the grocery store. Most of the time, I don't go to the grocery store. I get my groceries delivered, I get my food delivered, and when I do, I wait for the delivery driver to leave the driveway first. I don't even want the delivery guy to see me when I get the stuff. My other food I get I get in the mail. I get stuff in bulk on Amazon. And I wait for the fucking mail carrier to leave. I don't want to have to interact with them. I don't want them to have to see me. I want to live my life as far removed from broader society as humanly possible. And I would like to go into a profession where I can make so much money and save so much money that eventually I can go off somewhere so remote that I don't have to participate in society. That would really be the dream there. And so I'm not a hikikomori anymore the way that I used to be when I started gaining traction on YouTube. But the mindset of the hikikomori, it has not left me. And it comes and it goes. I go through periods where I'm a little bit more social, at least online. I meet up with people in person and I do videos with them and stuff. I have the capacity to do so, certainly, but it seems like the closer I am to myself is the closer I am to being alone. And when I'm alone, I feel the closest to who I am. I feel the most in tune with myself and the most connected with myself. Back when I was in the throes of addiction and I was using drugs pretty regularly, I found myself clinging on to those around me for any kind of validation or distraction. I almost viewed them as a change of consciousness in the same sense that I viewed the drugs that I was taking. And in that sense, I enjoyed their company. I appreciated them for who they were, but those interactions, I feel like I was not really humanizing those people in the way that I should have. I feel like I was not sufficiently respectful to those people. I feel like I was leaning on them in a desperate sense, the same way that I was leaning on the drugs that I was taking. And that was not healthy. I don't think that was me being a good friend. Of course, my friends obliged. They were there for me because they are good friends, but I find myself now only really leaning on myself as far as interaction is concerned. And that's because I've gone closer to the source now. I'm not really engaging in those maladaptive behaviors as a way of distracting myself from trauma or not directly facing trauma, not directly facing the hardships of the world. And since I quit that job, it's like I've just been on an upward trend mentally. I think that job really forced me into a corner where I was supplementing human interaction as a replacement for real fulfillment. And so I went far outside of myself and behaved like someone who was not myself. I think also coming off of the heels of two simultaneous, very unhealthy relationships where I was, treating those two people as almost like caretakers who could distract me all hours of the day, prevent me from having to think, having to be alone with myself, during a period of time where I was more uncomfortable with myself than ever, because I was on these hormones that made me feel like someone I really, really disliked, that made me experience the world in a way I really, really disliked. And that's not even to say anything of the chaotic nature of my home at the time that only served to reinforce this sense of isolation and disconnection that I was leaning on them to distract me from. But those weren't, really fulfilling interactions. If anything, those interactions were also isolating in a sense. Those interactions made me feel alone as well. But when I got off of those hormones, and when I started acting more like myself, started seeing myself more for who I am, I began to go closer to the source once again, and not need people as much. But the thing is, that was a gradual process. I was still, old habits die hard. I was still in that mode where I felt like I needed to really lean on people all the time. And so certain friends of mine, I would hit up all the time to be in calls and stuff, just to distract myself from my own thoughts. I didn't want to be alone with my own thoughts. And those people helped me a lot in that regard, but eventually I'd come to a point where I did not need that kind of help anymore, and I could get on just fine by myself once again, which is how I used to be. That's how I was in the past. So progression is not a linear thing. You go up, you go down. Sometimes you fall down really, really hard, but the trend is still progressive in nature. It's just not linear. Sometimes you have to fall down really, really hard. You have to go down super low in order to get up higher and stabilize a little bit, but progress is made along the way. And that progress has led me to being just as nocturnal as I was before, if not more, and just as introverted and isolationistic as I was before, if not more, which ties into all of this. I'm nocturnal because I want to be alone, because I like being alone. I feel calmer, safer, happier, more fulfilled, more comfortable, more in tune with myself when I'm alone. And the cover of the night and the moon's light by far provides the clearest refuge under which I can feel and partake in all those things. And that's wonderful. This is how I like to live. And if I can, this is how I'm gonna live.